Jr. was a leader of the fight to end discrimination against African Americans. This fight became known as the Civil Rights Movement.
We were just children when Dr. King came to our hometown of Selma, Alabama in 1965.
Back then, things weren't equal for African Americans living in the South.
We couldn't go to the same schools as white kids.
We couldn't swim in the same pools or eat at the same restaurants.
And in places like Selma, African Americans couldn't even vote.
By law, African Americans had the right to vote. But in the South, most were prevented from voting by unfair rules, bullying, and threats. Voting gives people power. When someone votes in an election, he or she affects how government works. Some white people didn't want African Americans to have that power. Dr. King came to Selma to protest against the cruel population that blocked African Americans from. Before Dr. King arrived in Selma, his supporters organized a protest. They wanted African Americans to be allowed to register to vote.
300 people crowded the courthouse steps. Many are teenagers and kids, including Cheyenne and Rachel. Rachel points to the town's dreaded sheriff. He's standing on the courthouse steps.
That's Sheriff Clark.
He looks mean.
Reverend Jose Williams, a civil rights leader, is at the front of the crowd.
Voting is our right. We will not let you stop us from that.
Stop. The courthouse is closed. Go home and quit blocking the sidewalks. Get.
Sheriff Clark stands there glaring, but then the crowd starts to sing.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome.
Stop that now. Just cut it out or I'll arrest every one of you.
But no one stopped singing. Clark orders his men to arrest the protesters. The police shove the marchers and hit them with sticks, but the protesters had been trained not to fight back. This was known as nonviolent protesting. 60 people are put in jail. Cheyenne and Rachel run home terrified. That night, Cheyenne speaks with her mother.
Mama, have you tried to vote?
If I tried, I'd probably lose my job. Besides, what's a girl like you worried about voting for?
Dr. King says if you can't vote, you aren't free. I want to join the protest.
I'm sure he's right, Shay, but I don't want anything to happen to you. There's no telling what Clark and his men will do.
Mrs. Webb has right to worry. Across the South, protesters had been beaten badly by police. Others had been murdered in their homes and even their churches.
That night, Cheyenne lies in her bed gripped by fear. She pictures Sheriff Clark's men with their guns, but then she hears the sound of singing coming from the church.
Oh freedom, oh freedom, oh freedom over me. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
The music is Cheyenne screaming.
We were just Death was all around us during the Civil Rights Movement, but I was determined to keep fighting.
After an African American man was killed by policemen nearby town, Dr. King called for the biggest protest yet. This time, 600 marchers, black and white, gathered for a 50-mile march from Selma to Montgomery. Sheriff Clark had made it known he would stop the marchers no matter what.
Despite Cheyenne's mother's worries, Cheyenne and Rachel decide to join the march. They walk next to a teacher from their school, Mrs. Moore.
Mrs. Moore, I'm scared.
I understand. I'm scared too. Just remember we were fighting for our freedom.
When they get to the middle of the endless post bridge, the marchers see hundreds of police troopers on the other side with clubs and gas masks blocking their way.
If we don't keep going, nothing will change. We will never be free.
The girls hold hands. They walk with the crowd across the bridge.
Don't go any farther. There will be no talking to them. Turn around and go back. Now.
Williams turns toward the crowd.
Charge on them, men.
Kneel down and pray.
The troopers push into the crowd swinging their clubs.
Girls, stay with me.
Police spray tear gas. Blinded and gasping, the protesters scatter. Cheyenne and Rachel are separated from Mrs. Moore. TV crews capture the violence. Men on horses trampling protesters, troopers beating people with clubs, and people tumbling down the riverbank.
Rachel, run!
The girls escape, but dozens of people are seriously injured.
This day came to be known as Bloody Sunday.
Later that night, Rachel and Cheyenne join the others at Brown Chapel. Hopelessness fills the air.
It's like right around here.
But out of nowhere, someone starts humming.
You hear that?
Others hum along.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Keep on walking, keep on talking, marching up to freedom land.
Suddenly, everyone is singing and clapping.
I get the feeling that this fight isn't over yet.
They can break our bones, but they can't break our spirits.
Americans were outraged by the violence they saw on TV. People around the country and the world rallied around Dr. King and the Selma marchers.
2 weeks later, Dr. King comes to Selma. He will lead a 5-day march to Montgomery. More than 3,000 people join him. Cheyenne and Rachel are there for the first miles of the march. Dr. King spots the girls.
Aren't you tired?
Our legs are tired, but our souls still feel like marching. It seems like we're marching to our freedom today.
Well, we're very glad to have you.
From his smile, we could tell how proud he was of us. He touched us on our heads and went on down the road.
On day 5 of the march, 30,000 people joined the marchers to Dr. King's speech in front of the Capitol building in Montgomery.
Today, I am here to tell America that we are not turning around. We are on the move now. We are moving to the land of freedom.
Cheyenne stands smiling among the thousands. Her parents decided to drive to Montgomery for the occasion. They all joined in song.
This little light of mine, let it shine, let it shine.
5 months later, President Lyndon Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act. It ended the unfair rules that stopped African Americans from registering to vote. Cheyenne and Rachel, along with all their fellow freedom fighters, had a blast.
Thank you very much.